My mothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, my sincere apologies for being late. I was actually sitting in my car thinking that it was a passing shower. And I think there's a delay on Zoom because I said, oh, they're running late. The Amal was still going on, at least on my Zoom. So I said, okay, it's okay, I have time. And now there's literally a flood. Like my socks, everything is wet. So alhamdulillah, Allah is the best of planners. So today is inshallah our sixth majlis on the topic, finding peace in an imperfect world, balancing acceptance, action and hope. And we started this topic last time when we met, and we talked about what is tawakkul according to the Quran and Hadith. And we said that tawakkul is a part of the Tawheedi life, a Tawheedi worldview, in the sense that part of us understanding Allah and His superiority is that we believe that He is in charge and that we leave our affairs up to Him. And we said that the biggest impact of tawakkul on our lives is that we have a feeling of emotional freedom. We have a feeling of emotional inner peace as we go through the motions. So of course, we understand that we have to do our bit. Tawakkul does not mean that we give up. And like we said, it's not about, leaving your car unlocked or your camel untied and then having tawakkul. You have to do your sa'i, you have to do your bit. And then you have this feeling of now I'm no longer in charge. And the thing is that it is such a blessing to have tawakkul in this life, because we know that the greatest kind of issue that we have in our lives today is that of anxiety. And I did get some questions on that, and inshallah we will cover them towards the end. So we said that it's, there's a lot of absence of tawakkul, which gives rise to anxiety in our life. And tawakkul, in essence, depends on the understanding of the human being. So the younger we are emotionally, right, spiritually, we will cry out at every pain because we do not understand the benefit of it. As we grow in maturity, we understand that in His hand is only good. And at that point, we may adopt patience. Like we still don't like it, but we go through it and we may even say, Alhamdulillah, with that tongue. And the highest level kind of as an adult, as a spiritually mature adult, is when we recognize that He is, because He wishes only goodness to me, it is actually a benefit to me, whatever is happening. So how do we get to tawakkul is what we started talking about. We said that in order to accept a wakil, in order to have somebody as our representative, somebody that we can trust our affairs to, we need to kind of go through a cognitive process. A cognitive process means that we have to vet them. Even when we hire somebody to work for us, we kind of know their resume, we know, like we want to look at their character, we want to look at their competence. And biggest, when we want to, adopt a wakil or we want to hire a wakil, is that we want somebody who cares. Because even if they have a lot of competence, right, even if they have a very high level of character, if they don't care about us, then they can actually do harm. Isn't that true? So we started by saying that, the three things very important in order to pick a wakil is first, what the Quran tells us is reflect on his signs. Okay, reflect on his signs means, and lots of beautiful ayat in the Quran, but this one says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Innal mu'minuna allazina iza zukira Allahu wujilat qulubihim. When the signs of Allah are recited to them, their hearts kind of quake. Their hearts tremble, and this trembling is the trembling of what in English is called awe. A very new kind of emotion, which has been studied in psychology, very highly correlated with emotional and mental well-being, is the emotion of awe. Awe means that something bigger than you is inspiring you. Something bigger than you is in charge. Because remember, human beings are not meant to carry the burdens of the world. We're just not meant to. We have such limited ability, despite all our ability, right? And this is very important information for us because we try, right? We try so hard to control everything. So the feeling of awe that we get after, encountering His grandeur. So, recently I had the great blessing of visiting redwood trees, redwood trees in California. It is said that some of them are from 2,000 to 3,000 years old. In other words, they were there when the Prophet walked the earth. And the way Allah has created them is that they are, because wildfires in the West are a very big threat, right, to the environment. So the way Allah has created them is they're kind of immune to wildfires. So we saw some which were actually burnt, but it didn't do anything to them. It was only the outer kind of bark that was burnt. But very, very interestingly, there's a tree, because some of them are known by their names as well, right? There's a tree called Helios, which is like very old and very, very special. And what the government decided to do is keep its location secret. So they post pictures, but no one really knows where that is. Why do you think that is? Sorry? To protect it, because God is protecting it, but they cannot protect it from human beings. And this is what happens when man does not realize God's plan. All the destruction that we see in the environment is because man does not recognize God's plan. We think in our very limited knowledge, I don't know, I can't remember, it was Freakonomics, I think, a book which was very popular a while ago. And in that, I think it was that book in which they said, this one community tried to control the rabbit population in one area, right? So they thought, oh, too many rabbits, like, we do. We go into the park, we start feeding the birds, right? We think, oh, we're doing such a good job. And what Allah is providing their risk, right? This is tawakkul. Allah is providing their risk. So when we interfere in the environment with our limited knowledge, what do? Harm. Okay. So when they look at the signs of Allah, their hearts quake, they recognize his grandeur, and they begin to trust him. They begin to trust him. That is, so when we see the how magnificent this universe is and how it is operating despite what human beings are doing to it, this should kind of let us know that somebody bigger than us is in charge. Okay. Then the second thing, and this is what I left you with last time, was, remember we said, check out his resume. Did anyone do that? Okay. What was his resume? Ayatul Kursi, right? So again, we've done several lectures on this, but today just want to focus on the fact that Ayatul Kursi is God's resume. So, whenever you feel kind of a lack of tawakkul or a lack of trust, really, we read, all of us, alhamdulillah, read Ayatul Kursi every day. But just reflect on what it is telling us, right? It is telling us that he is the one. He is Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. He is ever, ever living. No matter how much we trust on a human being, human beings have one really bad habit. They die. Okay. So even if a person is really, close to us, and this happens all the time, right? We see it all around us, that especially in spouses, we depend so much on our spouses, and people who lose their spouses suddenly, it is a huge, kind of trauma, right? But the one that we truly depend on is ever living, doesn't die, doesn't even get tired, doesn't get cranky, the preservation of the whole universe, it doesn't add or take away anything from his strength. That is how powerful he is. He knows everything that human beings know. It is only what he has allowed them to know in that instance. Okay. And the whole entire universe, the thrones belong to him, the thrones of the heavens and the earth. And, preserving them does not tire him. And he is the most high, the most great. Okay. Other verses of the Quran tell us what? That he is also compassionate and merciful. So despite having all of this power, in human beings, power and compassion very rarely go together. Very, very rarely, right? Because when you have so much power, it's very hard to have compassion for other people because you are so focused on the power, right? I mean, our Prophet ﷺ certainly had it, but so not only is he powerful, he's compassionate, he cares about us, about every single one of us. He does desires for us nothing but ease. So in a situation when I'm puddling through that, thing outside, and I think this is so hard, I need to kind of connect and understand that in everything that I'm put in my outer circle, whatever I have been granted is a blessing. And if I cannot see it, the problem is not his, the problem is my insight and understanding. Okay. So once you read his resume, right, then it really, this verse again, which we read all the time from Surah Talaq, verses 2 and 3, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ, the one who has taqwa, يَجَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا, Allah will make a way for him. And when we go further, then we see a beautiful example of that. And he will give risk to them from where they know not. You don't know where it's going to come from. We have all of life's plans, and we don't know where our next meal is coming from. True? So, he who depends on Allah, who has Allah as his wakil, who does tawakkul on Allah, it is enough. You don't need anyone else. Now remember, what did we say? This does not mean that we don't have intermediaries, that we don't depend on human beings, because Allah is not sitting there and sending us helicopter, sending us aid through helicopter, right? He uses people. So it's not like we don't need people on this earth, but we have to understand that the ultimate source of every blessing, of every help that is coming to us, is coming from him. Okay? So, again, Imam talks, says Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, that this verse is about the degrees of tawakkul, that you must understand at all times that he does not cease in his grace. It's not like, so the Quran also tells us that, when Allah gives us, we think he's honored us, right? And when he withholds something, we think he has disgraced us. But what Imam tells us, and what how the Masumeen explain it, is that every single event that happens for a moment is khair. Whether it is good, it's khair for him. Whether it is challenge, it is khair for him. Okay. And so, also just remember, when we fly in a plane, we sit aram, say if it is an airline, like, an airline which shall not be named, which we lovingly called Please Inform Allah, right? When we travel that airline, we are not sitting that comfortably. Why? Because we don't have that much trust. But when we're sitting on Air Canada, we're not like going in, checking on the pilot, right? We know that even though we have a destination, we don't know the flight plan. Do you know, by the way, that when an airplane takes off and lands, it has a flight plan. And now, again, we can see everything, right? Which actually causes more anxiety. But the flight plan might be there, but the pilot keeps changing it, making minor adjustments depending on the weather, very interestingly, the last flight that we had, before we took off, the pilot said, don't worry, it's a perfect day to fly, no turbulence. Oh my God. Then they kept on making, sorry, we were wrong. Quite anxiety provoking, I have to say. And we are told it's only going to last 30 minutes. It lasted a full 3 hours. Okay. And all I was thinking that in this day and age, they don't even know what's around the corner. And these are the people that we literally trust with our lives. Okay. So number 3, first was what? Check out his signs, check out his resume. And number 3, check out his track record. Check out, so when we are flying certain airlines, we are aware of their track records, which provides a lot of anxiety in us, right? But when we check out Allah's track record, beautiful, Dua Arafat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, it's literally about Allah's track record. How he has taken him. So he says, oh Allah, I turn to you in need. From the moment I was born, you have provided me nourishment and care. Even before we were born, how much he has taken care of us, right? I mean, we know that, when a mother is carrying a fetus, how many, so the fact that we're all sitting here is a miracle, right? It is the fact that he has protected us and brought us into this world. Before I could even make decisions, you surrounded me with your mercy and love. You placed me in a loving family, kept me safe, provided for me. You have been my protector and guide throughout my life. When I was lost, you guided me. When I was weak, you strengthened me. When I was ignorant, you taught me. Right? So, in other words, everything that we know today, it has come from him through the Vasila. Whatever school we went to, whatever books we read, the fact is that he put all of those situations. We were not in charge. Were we in charge of, what we were learning? No. So all of this was happening. Your blessings upon me are countless and your mercy is infinite. I'm ever in need of your grace and bounty, and I rely on you for all my needs. So this is his track record, that he has been with us since before we were born. Our forefathers were protected so that we are here now. Again, when we, inshallah, we'll do a lecture on gratitude, maybe tomorrow, inshallah. But the fact, if we start reflecting on his signs and look at his resume and look at his track record, it is like swimming in gratitude all the time. And that is the opposite of distress, isn't it? So this is how Tawakkul nurtures peace within us, right? So now let's see what Tawakkul looks like in action. So two very, very beautiful stories from the Quran. Obviously, we will not be, studying them in great detail, but still. So the first story is about Musa. So this is, said in some detail in chapter 27, and verse 7 says, we revealed to Musa's mother saying, nurse him, then when you fear for him, cast him into the river, and do not fear nor grieve. Surely we will bring him back to you and make him one of the messengers. And then verse 10 says, and the heart of Musa's mother was free from anxiety. She would have almost disclosed it had we not strengthened her heart, so she might be one of the believers. Honestly, whenever we are feeling, so here's the thing. All of us, we fear for our elders, we fear for our children, right? As parents, as children of parents, we are always anxious about, I keep, for those of us who have, and by the way, I was told I give too many examples for young mothers and not enough for people actually my age, okay? So we do fear, when our parents get on in years, we are very, we're very, very concerned about their well-being. Like I keep thinking, what I really want to do is I want to wrap them in bubble wrap, okay, and not let them do anything, right? Just protect them, okay? So, and that's what we want to do to our kids too. Remember we talked about all the surveillance devices that we have in our lives to keep track of our children all the time, right? What is Musa being told here? She has the same kind of fear. I mean, this is very real fear, right? We know that, people who are like Hazrat Musa alayhi salam are being killed. So, but Allah tells her, what does he tell her? Let go. Instead of clinging, give him to me. And I make a promise, you will be brought back. Do not even, fear and grief are the two things, right? Fear means fear for the future, means anxiety. And grief means grief for the past, sadness, depression, anxiety, right? Interestingly, by the way, in the Quran, like Jannah is always referred to a land of no grief and no anxiety, like no anxiety and no depression, right? Why? Because people are living in the present moment. You cannot have fear or grief or sadness in the present moment, because anxiety is always about the future, right? And grief is about the past. So she's told that Allah's plan will prevail. And, verse 13 is just so beautiful. So we gave him back to his mother so that her eye might be refreshed and that she might not grieve and that she might know that the promise of Allah is true. One way of reading this as a mother, right? Allah is changing history. He's writing history, not changing history. He is writing history to provide comfort to a mother's eyes. That is, something to think about, right? and so that she may know that Allah's promise is true. So we know the whole story, right? He was in the mouth of the enemy. Had she clung on to him, the only place that she would have protected him from would be the palace of the Pharaoh, right? And where does Allah take him? Into the mouth of the lion, okay? And how many times have we felt like that? That we are actually in a situation where we are in the most dangerous situation, emotional, mental, that we could be. And this is again where faith comes in, that he has a plan. If he has put you there, he will take you out of it. Okay, so the other story is about Nabi Musa and the Red Sea. So now let's take ourselves to this place where the children of Israel are leaving Egypt and the frightening army is following them behind. Okay, so they're chasing, like they're running and the army is behind them. They're obviously very worn out. They are tired. They have women, children, everything. So they don't have too much strength. And what happens? Where do they reach? They reach the Red Sea. Now, obviously, they don't have any means of transportation. They have fled, right? They're like refugees. So they reach the Red Sea, and who's behind them? The biggest superpower of the time. So what happens is that they find themselves in a place where there is no exit. No exit. This is what we call a rock and a hard place. Right? So they have the sea in front of them and the army. So obviously the army is very, very scared, rightfully so, right? What do they say? Most surely we are being overtaken. Inna la mudrakun means we are dead meat. In other words, we're done. Okay, there is no hope. And what does Nabi Musa reply? Qala kalla. Never. No way. Okay, no way. Inna Mahya, he is with us. Our Rabb is with us. Sayahdeen, he will guide us. Now, how will he guide? If we were in the place, like, what guidance are you talking about, Allah? Here's the Red Sea. Here's the thing that there is no way out. And then, of course, we know the story, right? That he is inspired to beat his sword, and the way is made, right? But again, let's talk about the emotion, the difference in the understanding and the inner experience of the two, the Bani Israel and Nabi Musa. What is the Bani Israel focusing on at that point? The Bani Israel is focused on the obstacle, the fact that there is no way out. And we know from psychology that whatever you focus on in life, it grows. So when I'm looking at a wall and I'm asked to focus on the wall and nothing else, I cannot see anything around me. This is why, by the way, when we are in a challenge or when we are upset, our vision becomes tunnel vision. We cannot see. If you look through a microscope or a telescope, you can't see what's around, right? You can only see what you can see through the lens. So when you focus on the obstacle, obviously you are going to be very fearful. What is Nabi Musa alayhi salam focused on? He's focused on my Rabb, right? I've read his resume. I've looked at his signs. I know his track record. Therefore, I am absolutely certain that he is A, with us, and B, he will guide me. This verse again, whenever we're going through a challenging situation, these are some verses, what I call verses of comfort in the Quran. We need to kind of recite them again and again and again and have them committed to memory. Even if you if you remember the English, not remember the English, not remember the Arabic, the idea is my Lord is with me and he will guide me. Our self-talk, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we are having that inner dialogue has a great impact on our mental and emotional well-being, right? So when I'm telling myself all the time, I am absolutely certain, no way is this barrier big enough to kind of drown us, right? He is with us and he will guide us. So now what is your focus on? Your focus is in your Lord. And when the focus is in the Lord, he makes ways A and he makes you see the way out. Okay, Salawat. So we know that tawakkul, that's why, is a very hope-inducing, energy-instilling kind of inner experience. When we are focused on this world and its challenges, then we get very, very distressed. Think of the army, right? Sorry, think of the Bani Israel, exactly like that. But when we step in the shoes of Musa and know exactly what is like, we don't know anything, by the way. Did Musa know what was going to happen? Did he say, what, I got this. Don't worry, I have this nifty little, stick and I can make all sorts of miracle, or I've done this before. None of that. He actually did not know what was going to happen. He only knew that Allah would make a way. So when we are going through challenging times, we absolutely do not know, and that's the problem of trying to control, because then it actually stops, it's like, again, what I said, wanting my watch fixed, but refusing to take it out. Okay. So a beautiful hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He says, if you were to rely upon Allah with the reliance that He is due, you would be given provision like the birds. They go out hungry in the morning and come back full in the evening. Okay. And when we see, Allah tells us in the Quran, and we see this all the time, that, like, again, when you're walking in the forest, when you're taking a walk, look at all of the little wildlife around. And Allah has kind of protected them, made provision for them. So wouldn't He not care for the being that is most closest to Him? So now, I was requested to kind of give some tips for managing anxiety from psychology. So I think in order to do that, we first, and I will answer the questions, but once we go through these. So we need to first understand again that the way Allah has created our body is perfect. Anxiety is a response generally to fear. Fear, let's talk about fear first, okay? If we did not fear, we would not be able to survive. Our body is designed so that if there is an imminent danger to our body, we will react. At that point, our thinking brain is offline. We cannot sit and reflect. We cannot think, what shall I do? We have to react immediately. And so the way Allah has designed our nervous system is that it works really good when the danger is very severe, but for a short period of time. Because no one of us is really living in the jungle where we are being eaten by tigers all the time, right? We may come across like a car trying to run over once in a while or something like that. So our body, our nervous system is designed perfectly. Now, again, the problem is what human beings have done is that we continuously give ourselves, we're never allowed to be in the state of rest and digest. So the way Allah has created is you have very high anxiety, very high fear, you deal with the issue, and then you kind of come down, you relax because the danger is over. In modern times, we have all man-made dangers, right? Lack of time, danger, spouses getting angry at you, danger, traffic, danger, alarms, by the way. I don't know how many people wake up with an alarm, but that's really assaulting your nervous system right in the beginning, first thing in the morning, okay? So it's no wonder that our nervous systems are jacked up all the time. And therefore, we are always in a high state of anxiety. Okay, so we need to understand this in order to do anything about it. So generally, right, general things of, lowering anxiety, first of all, we have to understand our body's response. And then, like we said yesterday, we have to reduce our input. Like there's just no other way. If you suffer from anxiety and you're watching, TV late at night, for example, it's not going to go away. Like, you actually have to take action. So the 2014 study of US adults found that the single best predictor, the one best predictor of people's fear and anxiety was how much time they spent watching TV shows. And the same, by the way, like, Instagram used to be like a place of refuge. Now it's full of violence and what's happening in the world. I mean, chosen to kind of engage in that way. But the last thing at night is not a good idea. we have to, when we say reduce inputs, we have to spend time in silence. You know, so many people say, oh, I have to have something in the background all the time. And like, even if you're praying Quran in the background, really, is that respectful to the Quran? Because you're not listening, you're carrying on with your life. It's not meant to be background entertainment, right? The thing is, when things are, our attention is neither here nor there. You know, it's our attention as modern human beings is continuously fragmented. And therefore, we keep going from task to task, which increases our anxiety. So spending time in silence, when I say silence, I don't mean that you're watching something. That is not silence. Silence means no input, no reading is silence, right? No phones. Like when I say silence, it means you literally just be with yourself. Okay, for some of us who've never done it, not that easy. And then very, very importantly, we need to kind of, you know, recognize and manage our breath. The breath is a free tool that Allah has given you to manage your bodily state. What do I mean by that? First of all, we need to learn how to breathe through our noses. Many people, especially at night, if they breathe through their mouth, they are not getting proper oxygen. Lots of books written about this, by the way. You know, if you're interested, I can send you some links. So focusing on the breath, very important for two reasons. When we breathe properly, our body gets oxygenated, we are able to respond. And secondly, it helps us tame our mind. You know, anxiety is very, it has three aspects, right? One is our thoughts, anxious thoughts, one is the anxious feelings, and the three is the actions that you take in response to the anxiety, right? So when we breathe properly, we are helping to also tame our mind. Because if you focus on your breath, just do this for 1 second. Just don't try to breathe in any particular way. Just close your eyes and just notice where your breath is. Like you can focus maybe on your nostrils, okay? It might be easier that way. So when the breath goes in, just follow the breath. Wherever it goes to, you're not trying to breathe in any particular way. You're just noticing. And then when you're exhaling, you know, just notice where it comes out, whether it's warmer, cooler. It's literally as simple as that. Okay, so one is first of all, breathing through your nose, very important. Okay. Secondly, noticing your breath. This you have to do multiple times a day, because remember, we are trying to build muscles. It's not going to happen overnight. It is only going to happen little by little as we do different practices, okay? And secondly, you know, we have to understand, so how many of us have heard of deep breathing? Okay, so that's kind of a misnomer, okay? The problem is that the way our nervous system works, that it relaxes what is called, I'm not going to give you names because then I get into trouble. But when we exhale is when our resting response gets activated. So when we are focusing only on taking it in, if we are not exhaling properly, we will get more anxious. We will get more anxious. So two ways our breath makes us more anxious. First is when we are anxious, we are breathing up here. Shallow breathing. Again, very well designed. If you are being eaten by a tiger, you don't need your breath to go into your belly. This is good, okay, because it helps you run. However, when you want to kind of relax, it has to be deep and slow and focusing on the exhale. So if you're trying to breathe in a particular way, and I'm happy to put, you know, these online if anyone wants. When you breathe in, say for a count of 3, 4. When you're breathing out, just make it slightly longer. Okay. These are really very powerful practices to help us with managing our state. Okay. Free, okay, given by God, okay, and no downside. So now let's talk about specific anxieties. So this is great if you just have general anxiety, you know, you're always kind of stressed and like this, okay? These things are really good. Now you have specific anxieties. You are, scared of things. You don't want to go on the highway, for example. Don't want to drive on the highway, even though, you've passed all the tests, that kind of things. So you have anxious thoughts, anxious feelings, and the actions that you generally take in response to that is to avoid a situation, right? That is how human beings try to control the anxiety. If I am nervous about driving on the highway, what do? I don't drive on the highway. So now what happens as a result of which my life is kind of very restricted to where I can go without going on the highway. Okay. And this is not helpful. This is not how we're meant to live, because the issue is that we are feeling unsafe when there is no kind of data for that. That's the problem, right? And it's interfering with our ability to function. Now, another problem about kind of shrinking our life is this. Say I'm feeling anxious, okay? And say if I'm scared of dogs, okay, many of us are. If I'm scared of dog, and if I don't go to the house where the dog is, or I tell them to put it in another room, and I do this, by the way, anyway, but so say that, what happens is that my brain will tell me, see, good job, we're alive, we're safe. So now is it teaching to relax or to get more anxious? More anxious, because the message we're giving the brain is, well done, you kept me safe. So the only way kind of to, and there's a beautiful hadith by Imam Ali alayhi salam, which says that when you fear something, expose yourself to it. When you fear something, expose yourself to it. By the way, so many therapists have made millions of dollars writing books on this one thing. Not referencing Imam Ali, obviously, but the fact exposure therapy just comes out exactly, it's literally this, right? That when you fear something, expose yourself to it. Because when you expose yourself to it, and by the way, it has to be in very small. So for example, let's take the highway driving, right? I'm scared of highway driving. I'm not going to go to Oakville the first time I sit in the car, right? I'm going to go one exit on the 401. And will I have anxious thoughts? Will I? Yes. Will I have anxious feelings? Yes. Will they kill me? No. So I will likely survive. Okay. So the idea is that you expose yourself very, very gradually, and knowing that your body is reacting, right? That you are going to feel anxious, you are going to. So this is how you get used to it. So then your mind tells you, okay, that was not that scary. We kind of made it. So next time, let's try 2 exits. You see what I'm saying? So it has to be gradual, okay? So, what reduces, so anxiety doesn't grow stronger when we experience that growth and we go through it, we grow stronger. Anxiety grows stronger when we kind of give into the anxiety and think, okay, we will just avoid it, or we try to control our lives more and more, okay? So now let's go to the couple of questions. So the first thing is about elderly parents, that we get very anxious and they want to do all sorts of things, which, we would prefer that they didn't. And this is something that it was very interesting. I was working with a young woman and she was telling me about, she was very, very concerned about her parent, about one of her parents. And so in my mind, I'm imagining this person close to 100 years old, right? She said, oh, how is it they just won't be able to manage. When I found out how old the parent was, I had to laugh. Okay, I said, do you realize that your parent will live, inshallah, another 40 or 50 years? So this is what you're signing up for a very long time. And here's the thing, it's not fair on controlling somebody else's actions. Mothers of all types, children of all types, please hear this. It is not fair to control somebody else's actions because we are anxious. People will often say that, some mothers are so brave, they can allow their children to do whatever, to go anywhere. And the issue is that mothers' hearts are mothers' hearts. Everyone is anxious, but to clip your children's wings because of your anxiety is not fair on them. Similarly, to kind of control your parents' lives because you are wanting to wrap them in bubble wrap, right, is not fair on them. Okay, so we have to manage our anxiety rather than to expect that they will change. The second question was about dealing with family members who are very anxious. So this person said that, I'm not that anxious, but a family member of mine is very anxious and it's obviously impacting my life. Okay, so it is very challenging. That was the question. And my answer is, yes, it is. Yes, it is challenging. And if we reflect on everything that we've learned till now, right? If we try to use it in a practical example, we will know that we cannot, other people, do they come within our circle of control or outside? Outside. So when something is outside our control, what do? Accept, right? That is the first thing. We accept reality. We don't expect them to change. Reality is every single person has their own journey. And we wish that we could change people, right? And we can't. Okay, so that's the first thing. So again, what did we say? We have to look, what are my options? This is the challenge I have. What are my options? I can cry, scream, say this is not fair. Is it going to help me? Probably not. Okay, so what can I do instead? First, self-compassion. Lots and lots of, remember, treating the wound. If you are, whether it is with your parent or your child, if you are experiencing frustration, remember what we said, to add guilt to your frustration is not helpful. So now you have two feelings to deal with, right? Now you have the guilt, you have the frustration or the upset, and you have the guilt. None of which is, by the way, solving the problem or making you any forward in the journey, right? So self-compassion, and you have to kind of set limits for what works for you. Because reality is, if somebody is not willing to get help, you might want to send them something, say, how can I help you? How can I support you? And then take care of yourself. Because living with someone, especially with high levels of anxiety, depression, is very draining. It is. There is just no question about that, right? Join a support group, get help for you, read something on the internet, but know that you need to take care of yourself. Even those of us who are looking after elderly parents, it's a long-term game, right? And we need to kind of look after ourselves so that we can help them. And, one thing that really helps is, when we look at especially parents, okay, we need to see our door to Jannah. This is what we need to see, because that is what they are. They are our door to Jannah. And remember, we keep coming back to this, that we expect, problem is that we expect that the door to Jannah will be easy. We want to get there without actually going through struggle. But that is not how Allah has designed it, right? So hopefully this helps. If you have any other questions or comments from this, and by the way, some of the videos are already up, Living the Quran YouTube channel. The audios are not up yet, but inshallah, in a couple of days, they will be up. If you want additional resources, then you need to sign up. Just sign up on livingthequran.org, and I will send you a page with any resource you want, kind of meditations or practices or anything like that, Salwa.